Welcome to 100 Proof Live. This is a show about digital art and NFT news. On today's show, we have Blur's new product, Blast, pros and cons. We have Solana NFTs, are they back? And we have here live with us for an artist spotlight, we have Summer Wagner. This is 100 Proof, let's go!
Love that energy. Love that energy. Welcome to 100 Proof Live. I am Kevin Rose. This is Derek Edwards.
Let's go.
Let's go. Collab+Currency / proof person, investor / all the things.
Glitch.
There's pretty much
collector,
not a glitch. There's
Flamingo DAO in the house.
DAO.
Cabal in the house.
Members.
The cabal is in the house.
You
Let's
be a Flamingo
go.
member.
I
I can
want to
tell.
so bad.
I can tell.
I want to so bad.
There was a good sweep from Flamingo recently. Just throwing it out there. We all saw it. $1 million in NFTs. It's insane.
It's a lot of digital internet money flying around.
Art is
the
back.
internet.
We are joined today by also, obviously, we saw Amanda, who is Proof's culture and community head.
We like Amanda.
We have Eli as well, Proof's head of art. And, of course, the one and only Sam NFTStats, which is Proof's director of research. Sam, nice looking picture.
Running on fumes. Looks exhausted.
He's out. He's in Hong Kong right now.
Red stripes.
It's amazing.
I mean, it's 2 in the morning here. 2 in the morning. I got up at 7 for market talk. It's 2 a.m. I got up at 7 for market talk, and we're back.
Commitment.
Oh my God, that's hardcore.
Are we back? Guys. Is the data telling us that we are back?
I mean, we'll get into that. Let's cover a couple things though, real quick. Obviously, later in the show, Eli is going to have a conversation, as we mentioned at the top, with Summer Wagner, which we're super excited about, and her new collection, Midamerican Fever Dream, which is going to be awesome. Also, this one was really exciting. I had a chance to connect with Cozomo recently, and he was very excited to work with Proof and do a Grant Yoon solo exhibition in Los Angeles here at the Proof Foundry. Obviously, he's one of the biggest collectors in the space.
Awesome.
Huge influential figure. It's going to be here at the Foundry December 12th through the 14th. The opening reception is on December 12th. The only issue is that because it's Coz, sold out instantly. But we have 40 tickets for our community. So if you're part of the Proof community, Proof Collective, Moonbirds, head on over right now to events.proof.xyz and you can claim if you're in LA. Please don't claim unless you're actually going to be here. There's not like an NFT you can sell or anything. But come out, come say hi, and Kaz will be somewhere hidden in the audience because I don't think he's going to reveal who he is that day.
It's hard not to see Snoop Dogg when he's there live in the flesh.
maybe that's true. When you see Snoop, you're going to know.
Exactly.
Although, yeah, it's hard to hide. So that's going to be fun. Sam, let's talk about, it's late for you, but you're pumped because there's a lot going on in the market. What's new with NFTs?
There's so much going on, and it's been 2 weeks since our last call. So, I mean, that's all the way back to Blast and a lot of stuff. But yeah, so as far as the question, are we back? I think there's like a lot of mixed data going on. I mean, this here looks at ETH volumes. You can see that we're basically up 2x versus last week, and kind of trending higher. The next slide puts that in perspective with the overall market, though. So let's see if we can get that next. Yeah. So this shows like just how this sliver is compared to where we've been over the past couple of years, So we're still kind of like at low levels.
That slide looks
yeah, you don't have
we didn't even need to see that slide. I thought we were back for a second, and then I see that slide, and I'm like a little tiny tick up at the very bottom. But you know what? It's heading in the right direction. I see a tick.
It's heading in the right direction for sure. So yeah, so this is unique buy wallets. I think this is the thing everyone's always looking at, and we don't have an increase in unique buy wallets on the ETH chain. So this is weekly buy wallets. It's kind of where it's been. So that's certainly, something that we're all looking to get like more confirmation. The next chart looks at the kind of a PFP index, and you can see that, we're basically flat recently. I think we've really gone into, at least for the NFTs that are in this index, it's just like farming season. Yeah, I think with this Blast token out, there's so many airdrop farmers on Blur, and you kind of get so many people bidding, and when that's hot, it can kind of hold up prices and keep them where they are. And I think we're in a little bit of that phase right now. Next slide though, and I think this is like the big news of the past 24 hours is Flamingo DAO had a massive sweep. Put $1 million to work. This is just a snapshot some of the Beeple, some of the Maya Man. You got a couple of anticyclones in there. If you go to the next slide, though, we can look at all the different collections that were swept. The main ones, Beeple, Fragments of an Infant World, 3 Life in West America, 6 Meridians. That's crazy. 7 Cargo, 15 Zentrum,
Dude,
Human
15
Unreadable.
Zentrum, that's our drop.
That was us.
That's the proof
That's our
drop.
drop.
That's amazing. I love to see that.
And a lot of these floors, like Zentrum, the Zentrum floor went up about 25%. A lot of these floors really rocketed, and you even had a little follow-on buying. So that's just like a huge piece of news for today. Next slide looks at a bunch of the art block sales. Just kind of some of the bigger art block sales. We had a ringer, that top right ringer sold for 82 ETH, red peg, red background, only 10 of those. So yeah, crazy, right? Chimera. I think Chimera was part of the suite from Flamingo DAO, but before that, you had a 10 ETH sale. We had a Fidenza, and then in the lower right, one collection that's been pretty hot recently is Themes and Variations by Vera Molnar. Seed Phrase bought an N, an F, and a T from that, and spent 22 ETH just on the T. Spent like 12 ETH on the F. Basically spent 40 something ETH just on 3 NFTs from themes from Vera Molnar. So that's been a really hot collection recently as well. It's cool, right? And it's amazing how well it's doing. The other thing is there have been a lot of art drops that have just gone really well. Like stuff minting out right away. It's no surprise. This one, Worthy by ACK. There were 25 pieces sold for 5,000 euros, so something like 2 to 3 ETH. And we had a sale yesterday for 16 ETH. One for 12 ETH already. So this has been a hugely successful project that they did, I believe, with Avant Art. There's a little controversy around who got them because it was meant to be like a random raffle, and there's a little controversy there. But overall, I think in retrospect, it's a very successful drop from ACK. The next slide, another huge story recently has been Jack Butcher, teamed with Velocity Pass, dropped this piece trademark. There were 10,000 of them, and they were for 0.069 ETH, and you've had sales in the 2.5 to 5 ETH range. The floor is at 0.2, so that's just another example of something taking off a little bit more like the good old days. Like
Jack the Butcher strikes again. Watch out for him. He'll get you.
He does.
He's a force, man. He's a force to be reckoned with. Jack is insane.
You're such a boomer by calling him Jack the Butcher.
Why? That's awesome. That's a good nickname.
It is a good nickname. It is. I just hope that you know that that's not his actual name. I am a boomer. Sorry. All right, carry on.
I'll go to the next slide here. Just this one is crazy, and this was the "we are back" feeling. I kind of felt watching Views by Delta Sauce. This was it's a mint that was done with brain drops, and they minted for 0.1 ETH. I think it was 500 pieces. And I looked at my screen this morning and it was 0.25. I was like, 2.5x? And then the whole timeline's talking about it. And next thing I know, I look at it and it's a 1 ETH floor. And it kind of reminded me a little bit, it's very different, but it reminded me a little bit of Life in West America, where like it came out at a low price and just slowly people started really liking the art. And the art is just different windows and something like that. And so this really was bull market vibes, the way that this thing went from 0.1 to 1 ETH and the whole, Zeneca, D-Farmer, everyone's talking about it on the timeline. Next slide is another piece from Xcopy. He did a 42 edition drop a few weeks ago. That one has like a 90 floor. He did another one yesterday called Simulacrum. It's on the same kind of collection as the previous one, Algo Bro. And this one was given to, I believe, 33 people got the editions, and he kept 9. And the floor for that is 9 ETH, but it hasn't traded yet. A couple other quick things I'll just touch on. Here is Solana NFT volume. Solana has just completely popped off. First the token popped off from all the way up to $60, but the NFTs didn't move, and that changed very quickly. And now the NFT market's moving. If you look at the next slide, Mad Lads is the biggest kind of PFP project on the ecosystem. It's gone up to about 180 Solana, which makes it about a 5 ETH PFP. So it's kind of like a top 10 PFP, even including the ETH ecosystem. Next chart is Vera Molnar. Just kind of, I've been talking about it. A lot of charts look like this after the Flamingo DAO sweeps, but this chart was before the Flamingo DAO sweep. So that's just back to all-time highs actually at 6 ETH floor. And then the last thing, this is from 2 weeks ago, but just talking about Blast. This chart you can't really see, but it looks at the overall TVL, which is the amount of ETH that people have deposited there. At the end of season 2 for Blur, they announced that season 3 is going to be going in conjunction with an L3 or with an L2, season 3, L2. And it basically, Pac-Man talked about a couple of the things. He's always been very, very focused on the total value locked on the Blur contract. It's always felt like a North Star from the way he talks about things. And, two of his frustrations were gas costs, of course, which decayed TVL, and then also that people kept their ETH there and they weren't earning interest. If you have ETH staked, you can earn 4% interest. So he's creating Blast, which is an L2, where the goal is to make it so people naturally who have their ETH on there can accrue interest at whatever staking yield is while they're waiting to do other things with their ETH. Obviously, lower gas costs, which is something that a lot of L2s have tackled so far. But it's interesting because presumably this Blast token will be a very valuable token. So what you're seeing right now is a lot of people farming Blur again, because if you farm Blur, you're going to get the Blast token. You can also get the token by putting your ETH into the Blast contract, locking it up there until February, playing different games with spins and stuff like that if you refer friends and tell other people to join. But overall, this has been a huge topic recently. So that's kind of the crux of it.
Yeah, the Blast is fascinating because it's I do like the fact that you're actually earning some yield for the first time on your ETH, which is great. How many people have banged on the only real risk, in my opinion, is like smart contract risk here, right? Like if you're locking up ETH in a new contract, it sounds like they're using Lido on the back end and Maker, is that right, to kind of produce
for the USDC deposits?
Yeah. So I'm curious, Sam, do you have any sense of like, do they do formal audits on their contracts? Like that's the scary part of like considering to put any ETH into this new contract.
I don't know, but I'm sure they do formal audits, and I'm sure that security. Pac-Man's a good operator. I think he knows that security, one mess up in security, and your whole reputation is destroyed. And I think he gets that and takes security very seriously. People were, on the Blur contract, it said like command, like you just had, it just gave you a string and you signed your wallet to it. And, it very unclear what you were signing if you didn't know or didn't trust that this was something to trust. And, they've had TVL or they've had $150 million locked on that contract, and overall haven't had serious security issues with it. So I think like people who are in the NFT ecosystem are a little bit more used to this kind of structure where you're just kind of trusting this guy, and it's worked so far. But I can see where a whole new ecosystem is a little bit kind of shocked by it, because so many people are getting exposure to him now that haven't had exposure like we have for the past 12 months.
Yeah,
I'm curious to see, who's locking up their ETH. If you're locking up your ETH, if you're participating in this, drop it in the chat. Let me know if you're doing it, and if you are, why or why not. I'm very curious because, as I think we've covered this. Like a lot of people were able to claim their Blur token after season 2 wrapped. And the option was to lock up your Blur into Blast. So some people either just got off that ride right then, or some people actually just were like, you know what, this was more than I expected. I'm just gonna go on to this next phase. So I'm wondering how many people just got off the ride and how many people stayed on.
Yeah, let's ask that question in the community, and then I guess the big question for me and Derek, I know you're a little conflicted here because you're an investor in Blur. So, but I'm curious to get everyone's point of view here. Like, for when I look at this and I see what Blur is doing, I mean, now they have 2 big tokens under management here, and it just begs the question, like, why? I get that they created a new token for this new L2. Could they not have used Blur for that? It's like, it's a little bit of like, if you only have so much capital and you want to back Blur, where do I go here?
Yeah.
Do I go Blast? Do I go Blur? Like, it's hard from a consumer standpoint to understand, okay, is there going to be a third token in another 6 months? Like, well, why yet another token?
Yeah, these are all good questions. I can't speak for the team. I'm actually not an investor in Blast.
But Blur.
But I am I think you said it right. I'm not an investor in Blast. I actually didn't know about the L2 architecture at all until everyone else knew about it. What I will say is, I'll tackle a couple of things. I think the first thing you mentioned a few minutes ago was kind of the smart contract risk. To be clear, so far the L2 environment doesn't exist. So there isn't a ton of complexity around possible surface area or attack vectors. It's really a multi-sig.
Multi-sig that's going straight into Lido.
Exactly. That acts as a front end for Lido and Maker on the USD side and Lido on the ETH side.
And Lido's been battle tested. Obviously, massive amounts of money in Lido over the last several years. It's the biggest LSD, liquid staking derivative that's out there. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So to be clear, like the complexity is not zero, or like the possible attack surface area is not zero currently. But I just want to be clear that there's just not a ton of complexity on like the design architecture yet for there to be a ton of issues. But this is crypto, so there's always things that can come up. The second thing I'll say is just in terms of the thinking, and I haven't had a chance to sit down with Pac-Man or talk through this with him at all, but just looking at kind of the design decisions of what's happening here, the L2 environment really does unlock a lot for being able to build complex financial protocols in an environment that's a little bit more conducive for cheap transactions, fast speed, and when you've got this native yield that's being generated, there's all sorts of other financial products that you can build on top of that, in addition to some of what the first Blur product offers. And so you can imagine a situation where over time these things, the Blur exchange and the platform and the protocol itself ends up optimizing for something completely unrelated than what the L2 needs to optimize for to make it a credibly neutral architecture for other protocols to build on top of it.
Do you know, one of the questions I would have for you is like, there's so many L2s that are out there. And when you guys, Sam, Amanda, everyone else wants to chime in, when you think about just, the traction that these have, they all have varying degrees of traction. They all have varying underlying technologies. Some are roll-ups. It's like there's kind of a battle for who's going to win the L2 space, and maybe it's not a winner take all. Maybe it's fragmented. But it's like, why, if you're Pac-Man, and I know you haven't talked to him about this, but if you're Pac-Man, do you need to own that full stack? Why couldn't you, like Base, for example? It's pretty damn cheap to mint things on Base. Like, why not just embrace something that has Coinbase's scale?
Yeah.
Go with the pre-existing L2, save the headache, and just focus on Blur.
Yeah, if you look at kind of the thread he put out publicly, I think he has a viewpoint, and I don't disagree with some of this thinking, that there is just like what crypto economics and blockchains and trust minimized ledgers on a global environment allow for is this inevitable march towards optimization. And his viewpoint is none of the current L2 architectures are built or designed in the way that he believes like that optimization or that march towards efficiency will inevitably happen, which is this native yield that gets generated for ETH deposits that get bridged over to these L2s. And so the fundamental design constraint is, can we actually start generating native yields for
on an L2?
On an L2.
It's kind of awesome.
Say what you will about the marketing mechanism by which he's bringing people over. The experiment needs to be run in terms of just like we are in a space where we can borrow and mix and match ideas, and it makes all the other L2s better. They can start architecting in similar fashion if it proves itself out. And so there is something to be said about watching these public experiments get run and then having the space be able to recalibrate and rebuild based on what other people are doing.
As an investor and holder of crypto, taking out your investment in Blur for a second, would you ever at the fund level consider going in and actually locking up some ETH here?
Unfortunately, I can't answer that.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right.
Oh, it's so tight. Sam funny.
Can answer that. Sam, have you invested any into Blast?
I have.
Unfortunately, I can't answer that.
I mean,
Eli's in the chat right
I'm
now,
not an
actually.
investor, so I can't answer it. Similar to Derek, I'm not an investor, so I also can't answer it. No, I'm just kidding. My view here is that I think Pac-Man is one of the most ambitious people in the space. Like, kind of, he has an ambition level that is pretty unparalleled.
Yes.
in what I've seen. They spent over $300 million. They didn't spend they put $300 million out in incentives to the community on Blur, and as of last month had 2,000 daily active users after spending $300 million in incentives. This guy wants to go big. I think he wants to go big. He doesn't want to use other people's chains. He sees problems. He wants to solve them himself. And I think right now you have a guy who's saying, why would I use one? Polygon, Arbitrum, like Polygon's $8-9 billion fully diluted valuation. That's where that's the space that I think Pac-Man wants to be in, and I think he wants to be one of the kind of headline guys in the space over the coming year. I think that's what we're going to see. We've seen how aggressive he is over the past year, and I think we're going to see more of that over the next year with a much wider audience and a lot more people in the crypto community who are noticing just kind of how ambitious and talented this person is.
I have a question. Do you think that he might have chosen another chain if they were called Blaze or Polygon or Blarbitrum?
Blarbitrum. He loves the bees. Blarbitrum could be our new.
It could have.
Shit, let's do it.
I was on a Spaces. I was on a Spaces with 1,000 people from DeFi, and they could not keep them straight. Someone was like, yeah, it's really interesting with Blur and their token. And the other guy's like, yeah, and you get 4% yield. I'm like, no, that's not Blur. That's not Blur. That's the other one. That's Blast. Like these are experts. No one can keep it straight.
And Blend, it's a lot.
And Blend, that's the fun of it all. So
yeah,
I'm excited though. I think it's interesting to watch. What he's doing very, very well, and you can't take that away from him.
It is definitely, farming season. As somebody who spends a lot of time in our Discord and in other Discords, there was a nice, fun couple of days where it was just blast codes. It was crazy. And then all of a sudden it was Portal Coin. Everyone kind of moved over. But I think that, Pac-Man will know how to bring the attention right back to it. It's interesting to see. I think I'm reading the chat right now.
Yeah.
Got a couple people saying, it's a marketing gimmick. This is just a vaporware coin. And then we've got Marty McFly in the chat who says he's pro Blast. And then we also have Eli Scheinman, who I'm pretty sure is trolling, who said he sent 0.5 to Blast. But maybe he just meant 50 cents. We'll see.
The thing that it gives me, I'm not saying it's about Pac-Man, so this does not pertain to him, but like after SBF went down, and I thought of him as such a, at the time back in the day, as a really credible player in the space, I'm like a little bit gun shy for anything new.
Totally
I don't know.
valid.
I just kind of got
That's
that
totally valid.
And it's not, this isn't a slam on Pac-Man. I'm just saying, like, if there were any project out there that isn't like, and he was doxxed, right? And he was like backed by some of the best VCs. So I don't know. It's just a little gut weird thing that I get.
I think it's important to, like every person's appetite is different. Every person's portfolio looks different. And so it's really important to just understand intuitively, like what type of person you are and what you want to interact with and where you sit on the risk curve.
Yes, that's exactly right. So let's talk about Solana. Solana is made an insane comeback. Like it is just bounced back in terms of their actual coin price itself. I had a chance to hang out with Toli, the founder and CEO, face to face a few weeks ago, and we jumped on another call a couple days ago. The TLDR that I can share is that like they've been focused on network stability, which I think has been a big issue in the past, and they've made some big moves and strides forward there. And NFTs on Solana, the one key fact that he gave me, which I was just kind of blown away by, was he said, you can mint 1 million NFTs on Solana for under $10,000 of quote unquote gas USD.
Maybe even much less than that. I think
maybe it was 10 million. I'm thinking about.
I think the cost to transact in batch, like with their state compression for NFTs, is, I mean, like I've seen things as cheap as like $1 or like $2 for a ridiculous sum of NFTs. So we should. I wonder if there's a stat we can pull up.
What he was showing me is he was showing me a website. We have it on here. It's I think if you there it is. Drip. Have you heard of Drip before?
Yeah. So we're actually an investor in Drip.
Oh, so sweet. So walk us through Drip, because he was telling me that Drip is for them is an example of Solana at scale.
It's very cool. So Ronan on my team is one of our youngest investors. Actually led this investment for Collab+Currency. So we'll get him on the show next time or at some point to talk a little bit about Drip. I can speak high level to what Drip is doing.
Yeah.
So Drip is using the architecture of Solana to allow creators to essentially create objects that get minted en masse to anybody who signs up. And so you can kind of think it's less, you can look at the exchange profile for some of these objects that are getting minted hundreds of thousands at a time, and they're not really selling for very much. There's like $1,000 in volume, maybe for like the top collection on a weekly basis. That's not really the point. They're using the NFT wrapper, the scarcity wrapper, to essentially wrap around content that happens to be today. It can look like a digital art piece. It could look like a digital song. It could look like a newsletter. And when you start to see the NFT file format get used for in an expression that looks totally different than just pure economics, pure collecting, pure storing value in these things, you can start to wield that wrapper into ways that can unlock new types of consumer products. So the types of creators that may end up migrating to something like a drip can be much more expansive than just someone who's creating crypto art.
Right.
And that's kind of the power of Drip House. They've got, I think they're minting millions of these digital objects.
Yeah, they've done over 80 million. Maybe that's the stat he was giving me, was around how many they had minted and the cost to mint it.
And the cost to mint is like pennies.
Yeah.
Pennies on the dollar.
Maybe that's what it was, 10K for 80 million or something.
It's something.
He said 10,000 for some insane amount.
It's pretty staggering. And I think what Drip House is really getting at the edge of is, how can the NFT, this file format, be used for products and I kind of wrote about this in my piece this year. How can it start being put towards that other end of the spectrum, this product and service side of the spectrum, where on net these things are much less valuable, maybe 50 cents, 25 cents, 1 cent, $5, but in the aggregate can unlock new types of product and service value that we've never had on chain. So that's the power of Drip House and kind of what's going on here.
Yeah, and they've had some other breakout collections. Mad Labs, I know, Sam, you posted about this. It's up 10x since from September 1st, and up 4x from just a few months ago. That's been kind of one of their big anchor, PFP projects.
Yeah, you kind of have this. There's kind of this myth at times that that ETH going up is bad for NFT prices. And there are definitely paradigms where that's true. But what's kind of interesting here is you're seeing Solana, Solana's gone from, call it, $15 to $60. And then on the back of that, that's renewed interest in the ecosystem. And with renewed interest in the ecosystem, you're seeing people say, actually, now I want to own NFTs. So you're kind of having this double benefit of Sol rising and the NFTs rising. Yeah, Mad Lads, there's a project called Backpack, which I believe kind of is something like, I don't know all the details of it, but it kind of combines NFTs with individual wallets. But the team that is making that created Mad Lads, and it's been their project. And I just think this is, ever since DeGods left Solana, there hasn't really been a big project on Solana, and Mad Lads filled the shoes of that and more. I mean, one of the interesting things is now Mad Lads are worth more than DeGods, and it really kind of makes you wonder if Frank made the right choice by moving to Ethereum. But yeah, it's the kind of the replacement. Big kind of Trojan horse, like big player NFT for the Solana ecosystem is now worth 5 ETH and one of the top 5 or 6 PFPs across chain. So interesting to watch, certainly as a loyal community that's excited about what they're doing.
It's fascinating to think about that, Sam, because you're talking about basically, you can be a small fish in a big pond on Ethereum, or you can just go to Solana, where if you're like one of the only games in town, and you attract the Solana diehards, that's pretty powerful. And then when there's that renewed interest in Solana, more diehards come in, and then all of a sudden they're like, okay, well, what's my PFP here? It's fun to watch.
Yeah, one of my views on that is I just think I think all the negative energy that Frank got after their art came out for season 3 and the floor went from 8 to 3, I just don't think that would have happened on Solana. I think here there's so many different, we have so many different ecosystems here that are so critical of what they're not. Obviously, you had a dynamic on Blur that made it very hard to kind of stay high once a whole lot got dumped. But regardless, this desire that I see sometimes in the ETH ecosystem for NFTs to take each other down, or for projects to take each other down, or even for people who really love digital art to take down PFPs and similar things. I just think in Solana, now everyone's rallying behind Mad Lads, because that's the one horse. You have a couple others, Clanosaurus or other stuff, but nothing really of this kind of caliber. And the whole community backs it. And that's what Frank had when he was in Solana.
Yeah, in Solana, just to give people a sense of overall size of the NFT market, I believe, and Sam, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's The entire market cap for Solana NFTs is about 5% of ETH's NFT market cap, which is relatively small. So there's a lot of room to grow here.
For sure. Yeah, it'd be interesting because they've done it before. So it'd be interesting. You know, they had a huge 2022. You know, like Solana has been big already. This isn't like the new kid on the block. It's kind of the resurgence of someone that was huge.
Yeah, it's cool stuff. It's fun to watch this Solana mature over time, and I'm very. It's nice to see they haven't had any big incidents in a while. You know, like they've been stable. They've put a lot of time and effort into fixing that. That was the big thing with Solana, where it's like you almost start the clock and you're like, okay, count down 3 months, and then all of a sudden there's a network outage for like a half day or something, you know. But anybody chatting in the old Discord about Solana? People bullish, or what do they think?
Not. Don't worry about them. But I was just thinking about our market talk yesterday. Sam, you and I kind of talked about it a little bit too, and I think that there is something kind of interesting about on the art side for Solana, especially like generative art. I remember like War Daddy put me on to Code Canvas, and they're doing a lot of like generative art there. There's a Studio Yorktown one. There was a Herzog one, and a couple other ones too. So they're doing a lot of really cool things. I think there is something to be said about the cheap minting costs. That's clearly why a lot of people are moving to L2s. I think Solana might have its day and really kind of come back. I know I'm going to check out some of the Solana stuff in Miami next week because I know that they have a huge presence there on the art side. One of the artists that I just collected is going to do something crazy. I want to go check that out. So I think that they're really putting a lot of effort into trying to attract artists.
100%.
Maybe the Tez killer, maybe, you know, like that could be interesting. Right?
I mean, I don't think that
I mean, Tez is already dead.
No, Tez is not dead. Do not hate on Tez.
Sorry.
You heard it here first, folks.
The coin I meant, not the platform. We love FX Hash, by the way. We love them.
One of the reasons I was chatting with Totally and Raj over there is that like at Solana was because they are very keen to figure out how they can push NFTs forward on Solana. It's a big kind of mandate for them, and they're taking it very seriously. So it's nice to see. I mean, the full-on CEO and founder was like, what can we do? How can we learn? How can we build this into a bigger thing? Yeah. And it's so that's nice to see.
Yeah.
All right. So it is my honor, I would say, in the last year, there's probably been a handful of artists on one hand that I'm really been digging their stuff that have been new to me. You know, Die With The Most Likes was one where I was just like, I love his stuff. Summer Wagner is definitely on that list for me personally. Huge fan of her work, and she's here in studio today. Eli's going to kick off a great conversation about her upcoming new drop. But first, we've put together, in classic Proof fashion, an awesome little video, and let's take a look at that now.
After this particular shoot, I wrote down some reflections that I sent to Summer. These were really just personal. I wasn't expecting to share them publicly because I had a lot of feelings afterwards. Arriving at the site was surprising to me. So much energy. Everyone there focused on preparing the scene. Remote, strange, beautiful, historic. I stepped in, frozen in time, but knowing it was okay. Stillness did not come easily. I wanted to move, to conjure, to touch.
I want you to just kind of, you to lead it, and you to let the character find the different spaces.
I had left my body at some point. Be still, body, be still, my mind repeated. I was existing, but not aware. Senses were functioning, sight, sound, feeling, smell, taste, but no awareness of them. Upon hearing the word rap, a little awareness returned, a feeling of having spent everything. Knowing that I had left my all back at the ceremonial circle, I had nothing left to give it. On the drive home, I wished for younger days.
Damn, that is like goosebump giving material right there. That is amazing. Summer, thank you so much for joining us. It's great to have you here.
Really happy to be here, y'all, and watch that with you. It's amazing.
So cool. We got Eli on the video, Proof's head of art, and I know he's very excited to jump into a conversation and chat about this collection. Well, I guess we can all chat about it, but Eli, I know you have some great questions planned.
For sure. So welcome, Summer. This is going to be a lot of fun. When I think about this upcoming release on December 5th, I go back to a conversation you and I had maybe 2 months ago. And one of the questions I asked you, I think in a long, meandering, hour-long conversation was, who are you? And that kicked off a whole bunch of tangents and side threads that ultimately, I think, accrued into this release. But the place I want to start is tell us about the Midwest and how moving back there from California really catalyzed this chapter of your life.
Yeah, so I moved to North Orange County when I was 12 years old, and then spent the next 10 years in Orange County, just in the hustle and bustle, Orange County in LA. And it wasn't until I moved back to Illinois, my family moved back, and I was really forced to be in quietness with myself. First of all, I didn't know anybody, and that was a huge part of the process of being alone. But really, it was also spending vast amounts of time in the Midwestern landscape, whether it be in the prairie or the forest, or in abandoned houses or buildings, and just exploring this space with the eyes of a child. And then really, really getting to know my child self and kind of confronting her for the first time in 10 years. And understanding who I was from the perspective of meeting that child Summer and playing with her, interacting with her, getting to know her. And that's an ongoing process. I think something that I'll probably be doing for the rest of my life, as many of us will. But the Midwest just offered that landscape for me to expand and have the space to start building these worlds, discovering myself, but then also creating, and creating these worlds that I kind of had been imagining for a very long time.
So I love how you describe that, and you emphasize the impact that environment had on your internal world. But of course, now it's a primary character in your work and in your output in this external world or worlds that you're creating. Talk about the way in which you bring that into your work, and it's this consistent theme across this collection, but also some of your prior work.
Yeah. As a kid, I would spend a lot of time outside, and for then my high school and college years, I think I was pretty excluded or didn't have a lot of access to outdoor spaces alone. And so when I moved back to Illinois and started to just be able to experience outside by myself, it was kind of like, okay, everything that I'm imagining in my mind is able to kind of spill out into this space because I have permission. I'm not worried about anybody else in the area. And that led to a lot of self-portraiture. A lot of my early work is me having these almost theatrical or dance-like moments with myself and capturing it, being able to bring my body into a space and really express myself through where I place myself and interacting with various different trees or natural spaces, with abandoned buildings. That was a big expression in my early work. And then it kind of snowballed into bringing in other people, other characters, and just kind of expanding this inner world and bringing it into the real worlds.
Let's talk about this collection a little bit, Summer. So Midamerican Fever Dream This is a collection that I think you began at least thinking about in 2021. So 2+ years of ideation and work. Talk about the process of bringing this to life, but then also tell a little bit of that story of Mid-American Fever Dream. And then afterwards, we can maybe touch on some of the mechanics.
Sure. So we've talked about before that I have a background. I studied in filmmaking. I studied filmmaking in college. So I've always been very, very drawn to story. And moving back to the Midwest, I had the camera in my hands, was able to kind of start exploring story with myself or close friends as characters. But really, at the core of it all was a desire to become very fluent in my visual language and then to eventually be able to tell a more cohesive story with distinct characters. And so Mid-American Fever Dream was a story that I had been very much so thinking about throughout the process of developing this visual language. And while I was exploring these Midwestern landscapes, and also while I was developing my worldview while living in the post-industrial Midwest. You know, there's like a story that is so clearly present in the natural spaces and the abandoned architecture that are living amongst each other. And that was very, very intriguing for me. And kind of the first character in the story is the post-industrial Midwest itself. And that's what kind of snowballed, okay, and then there's these characters that are living in this space. And how does this space affect who they are? And how can they transform in this space when they feel tethered to it?
Mm-hmm. And in both the image that we were just looking at, which is the one of one from this first wave of the collection, but then also in many of your other works, there's this emphasis, at least through my eyes, on ritual. Can you talk about the way that the rituals show up in your work?
Sure. There's so much to be said about ritual that it's sometimes hard for me to process it concisely. But for wave one, this ritual for this character who's named Judith is really all about this sort of last-ditch effort to really somatically transform and to call upon the elements, the seasons, the tangible things in life that we hold a lot of power to, and bringing them into a space and offering yourself in that space fully to bring about some sort of power and change. And ritual in general, I mean, I love the video that we played right before this discussion started, because the process of taking a long exposure photograph is so ritualistic. I mean, as a director of this collection, of the piece, I'm creating a ritualistic space for these actors to be able to fully transform into the characters that they're portraying. And having Maureen, who plays Judith, reflect on that process unprompted and be able to describe exactly what I was trying to somatically conjure out of this experience is really, really exciting for me, because, you know, the lines between art and reality blur all the time. And I think that the act of creating art is also ritual. Definitely for me, there's something transformative that happens when you are able to summon a moment out of thin air by bringing the right pieces together, the right props, characters, spaces. There's a big amount of magic that can happen. And of course, the experience of seeing the art hopefully is also somewhat transformative for the viewer.
It absolutely is. Sorry, I have to just hop in because
Yeah.
I think there's something just incredibly powerful about your work. I think you can just sort of tell, and I think it's interesting that you mentioned that you studied filmmaking in school, because I think you can kind of tell the extra level of effort of every single frame that really kind of gets put into the work. You can really kind of tell. And we released these videos, but you had a lot to do with them. You provided a lot of that content for us, and you had a real vision for even the videos that we're doing for this. So I think it's really cool. I'm reading the chat, and we have a lot of people who we have Mine Rash in the chat who is also from the Midwest, really feels that connection. Really also pointed out the similarities between you and Di with the most likes there on that sort of commentary on the Midwest. I think that's really, really cool. And Mine Rash is also saying that he sees the jawbone a lot. That seems like a recurring element. So maybe you want to talk about what that is in your work.
Yeah, great question with the jawbone. There's a lot of recurring themes in my work that I've been really inspired by since moving to the Midwest. The jawbone was a symbol that was featured in one of my first ever creative photography projects that I don't have on the internet anymore because it's too early. But it was there. So it's this kind of recurring image that I love playing with. So there's a lot of symbology in wave 1 of Midamerican Fever Dream. Numerology 44, obviously with the dice, but the 4 is going to come back a lot in the collection. There's the 4 cardinal directions, and there's the 4 elements. And as I'm sure a lot of people from Proof know, I love playing with the elements, and the jawbone is a representation of the North. North is the representation, or associated with Earth element. And Earth element is really the kind of basis of transformation that happens throughout the collection. So it's a grounding energy, and I don't want to say too much because there's kind of more to come with the jawbone throughout the rest of the collection. But great detail that you noticed there.
Love that.
Yeah.
I think, if this is your second time working with us, first time you worked with us was for Diamond Exhibition for the Hands of Umbra collection, and there is a jawbone. I have Flame. There is a jawbone one, and now I feel like I have to go grab that one now that I know that it is so important. So I feel like I have to go grab one now. Very cool.
Summer, just as we wrap up here, let's talk. We mentioned these different waves. Let's talk about, sort of at a high level at least, the way that this collection and this story will unfold across those waves. So on December 5th, there's wave 1, which is comprised of a 1 of 1, and then this unique edition, which will evolve with the story. Just talk about making this collection sort of episodic, and the way that, without giving too much away, it will unfold over those 4 waves.
Yeah, really excited to be exploring telling the story over a period of time, because I feel like it's really offering a more immersive experience where people can understand the narrative on a deeper level than just releasing everything all at once, and get a chance to really simmer in the content and feel the flow of the story. So each wave is kind of offering a sort of story beat. So if wave 1 is the inciting incident, I think of wave 2 as the creating the normal world where you get to meet the other characters and get a window into what their normal world might look like. And really dive into how they correspond to the 4 elements and 4 directions, and what Judith is summoning in that first piece. And then wave 3 and wave 4 the story unfolds further, and you are able to kind of go through that process that the characters are also going through in the collection itself.
One question I had there is
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
when you look at the waves, you see December, January, and then there's a skipped month.
Yeah, so
What's
each
the-
wave is 44 days apart.
Okay.
So there's a little numerology play there.
Gotcha. I was like, why did you skip February?
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, well, this is. Yeah, go ahead, Kevin. Yeah.
Oh no, that was it. I was like, is there some secret here I need to figure out? Like something that's going on behind
I
the
should
scenes?
have forced you to figure it out and not giving you the answer.
Yeah, seriously.
That would have been way
Well,
more fun.
this is incredibly exciting, Summer. Similar to Kevin, you've been one of my favorite artists for a long time, and to be able to partner with you to help tell this story in a way that feels deeply authentic for you is really an honor. Cannot wait. Wave 1 starts next week on December 5th, and I think it's fair to say the story begins December 5th and will unfold every 44 days, as you said, until we hit Wave 4. Summer, such an honor. I wish I was there in person. The 4 of you guys are hanging out in LA. I'm stuck here in cold Canada, but such an honor to have you on, and really looking forward to next week.
So excited, y'all. Thanks so much. It's going to be a blast.
Yes.
Can't wait.
Blast. No, sorry. Never mind.
Don't bring Blast back into this.
Oh, shoot.
No, I'm just kidding.
Awesome. Well, that is it for this episode. Thank you for everyone that tuned in. And obviously, a huge thanks to our guest, Summer Wagner. Very excited for that drop. And catch 100 Proof Live every Friday. We'll see you again next week.
Thanks, y'all.
Take care, crew.
Come hang in Miami. It'll be fun.
That's right.
Let's go.
Oh, yeah.